How is everyone doing? Welcome back to another episode of The Banker Next Door. I am your host, Dr. Joe Berquist. Today, I wanted to talk to everybody about entrepreneurs. Is being later in life, if our 50 and 60-year-olds, do they make better entrepreneurs? If everybody remembers, a few weeks ago, I did an episode on is owning or basically starting a small business worth it? And I examined, kind of some of the consequences, if you will, of even if you're successful in starting that small business, there's a price to be paid for that. And some people, are they willing to pay the price? And does it make more sense to just have a 9 to 5 job and make some money and go home every night? So with that being said, I came across this really good article in the Wall Street Journal that basically said investors betting on people in their 50s and 60s because older is better. And I want to run through this real quick and then kind of talk about why I think that people that start businesses in their 50s and 60s is actually a better thing. So this article basically says, forget what you think about brilliant young entrepreneurs. Most people who start successful companies are in middle age or beyond. So Bridget Johns has always been an entrepreneur, entrepreneurial. She had just never actually been an entrepreneur. She grew up on a farm in Pennsylvania and ran a corn stand in her driveway. Instead of getting an allowance, she got piglets that she raised and sold at the county fair. After college and business school, she held a series of jobs at luxury retailers and offshoot divisions that felt to her more like startups than she worked. Then she worked as an executive at an actual startup. But she had always dreamed of building a company of her own. So a few years ago, she decided that if she didn't take the risk then, she never would. So she did. So Johns became a first-time founder at the age of 51. A suburban mom with decades of experience in her industry might not be the first person who comes to mind when you picture a venture-backed entrepreneur building an AI-powered company. As it turns out, that's exactly why Katerina Stropanianti, if I'm saying that right, Stropanianti, chose to invest in her. Stropanianti is a venture capitalist with a contrarian theory of entrepreneurial success. She believes that older founders can make for better founders. In fact, she recently launched a small fund to back founders of early stage tech companies with qualities that every investor looks for, one that no other investor looks for. They have to be a certain age, at least 50 years old. That's because older founders have lots of advantages that tend to go overlooked by investors who are obsessed with discovering young talent. They have connections, they have credibility, they have industry experience, domain expertise, and the kind of relationships that can take years to cultivate. They've seen it all, so they can spot opportunities that others miss. They know the rules of their business and how to break them. They also know which problems need to be solved because they have encountered those problems too many times themselves. Those are the virtues that Strapanati had in mind when she came up with the idea for her Brilliant Minds project. Her thesis was that older founders are undervalued because of their age, and their wisdom will be increasingly valuable. After all, if artificial intelligence outsmarts humans, there will be a premium on the intangibles that can't be automated and won't be commoditized. The new skills are going to be clarity, deep knowledge, and how we communicate with machines and our team members, said Strapanati, who calls herself 41 years young. As we get older, we get better at these skills. We're also getting better at getting older. These days, we have access to all kinds of longevity interventions that promise to make 50 the new 40. Only a teenager could think of 50 as old, but it's old to begin again. And it's definitely older than Silicon Valley's idea of a brilliant mind. There are perfectly logical reasons that venture capitalists glorify youth. One is that identifying talent early has paid off spectacularly for them. America's most valuable companies were all founded by visionary entrepreneurs when they were 30 or younger, and sometimes much younger. In tech, the ideal entrepreneur really might be a precocious engineer with an unlimited reserve of energy and insatiable appetite for risk, not just someone who gets into Stanford, but someone willing to drop out of Stanford. But younger is not always better. In other fields, you don't just need a college degree to build a company. You might need a PhD too. And it's hard to know how to disrupt any industry if you've never worked in that industry, all of which explains why the image that pops into your brain when you picture the archetypal startup founder is wrong. The person you're imagining is almost certainly too young. When economists from MIT, Northwestern, the University of Pennsylvania, and the U.S. Census Bureau studied millions of American companies that were started between 2007 and 2014, they discovered that the average age of their founders was not in their 20s or 30s, it was almost 42. Their research showed that age was a crucial predictor of success, just not in the way that anybody would guess. The highest success rates in entrepreneurship, the authors wrote in their 2020 paper, come from founders in middle age and beyond. In other words, founders like Morris Chang, who started Taiwan semiconductor manufacturing when he was in his 50s. I wrote about Chang and the surprising power of middle-aged entrepreneurship last year, and that's when I heard from Strapanati, an entrepreneur herself who moved to the U.S. from Greece in 2012 to start a tech company. When she began investing, she noticed that it was unusual for her to get pitches from older founders, but the ones she funded were usually successful. And she came to believe that venture capital's indifference to older founders was her chance to be different. She decided that her own fund would focus exclusively on entrepreneurs who were 60 and older. I told her to email again when she made her first investment. Not long ago, she emailed again. In response to popular demand, she had lowered the age minimum to 50. By then, Strapanati said she had looked into hundreds of potential deals, including 39% of middle-aged founders who had never been founders before. And she had just made her first investment in a company led by Bridget Johns. Before she was an entrepreneur, Johns worked at Tiffany & Company, Lancome, and Retail Next, which collects data and analytics from brick and mortar stores. When she left in 2021, she was the startup's chief marketing officer and head of growth strategy. She was more prepared than people half her age to launch a business. She was also more hesitant. I wasn't a 20-year-old startup founder, she said. I was walking away from a nice paycheck and a pretty stable existence. But with a supportive nudge from her husband, she took the leap into entrepreneurship. Her idea was an e-commerce site that uses AI to improve online gift giving. Johns calls the company To and From. So she knew from her time working with retailers that people struggle to pick out that perfect gift for their family, friends, and corporate clients. Johns thought her personal love of gift giving and her range of professional experiences made her uniquely qualified to help. The idea comes from having domain expertise, which I wouldn't have had when I was 25, said Johns, who is now 55. At 25, I had lots of other ideas for companies, but nothing that was so specific or deep within a niche. She was intrigued by the premise of Strapanati's longevity fund. She just wasn't sure that she wanted any part of it. Do I really want to tell people my age? Johns thought, but she too came around to the idea that her age could be her edge. And she's learning that it's never too late to start over or to start a company. It might not even be late at all. So, I think this is a great article and it's a fantastic topic. I think all too often in this world, I think that a lot of people are the victims of ageism. Ageism is a very real thing. And I have talked about that in the past, that, a lot of people, unfortunately, once they get into their 50s and definitely in their 60s, a lot of corporations are looking to, push them out the door, hey, we need to get younger. We need to get younger. And sometimes it could be for ridiculous things like the cost of insurance, or it could be for, they could just be like, hey, we could get somebody cheaper. We get somebody that'll work for half the cost, that kind of thing. And there are times, I will say there are times when, sometimes people can get, they could get complacent. They could get lazy. Obviously when you get into your 50s and 60s, most people don't have as much energy as they used to have. So those things are very real. But at the same time, you need knowledge. It's knowledge and experience. When you combine those two, you get wisdom, right? Knowledge and experience equals wisdom. And there is no substitute in life for experience. Once you have experience, and I think there is a lot to be said of, people that are very successful and accomplished in the corporate world, because they learn all about, policies and procedures and how you need to set things up. They learn about a lot of HRs. They have situational awareness. They understand sales and marketing and branding. They could have a very good understanding of accounting. Like they said in the article, you could have connections. They could know a lot of people. They could know most of the people that they already need to know in order to start the company. Like they could have great relationships with accountants, with lawyers, with bankers, with a whole host of people out there. They might have friends that own a marketing business. So for them to get the company started and getting up and running is going to be an easier feat in certain respects than somebody who's in their 20s and has never worked in corporate America, maybe doesn't understand what it's like to work at a big business, much less a much smaller company. Look, hey, 20 years old. I think that the other thing that is beautiful about growing older is you learn patience as you get older. You learn grace as you get older. You're not as impulsive as you were in your 20s. And those are all really great attributes. I think a lot of people, when they look back, would say like, yeah, what was I even thinking? In my 20s, I didn't know anything, there's an old saying that your 20s and 30s are for learning and your 40s and 50s are for earning, so that's an old cliche. It's been out there for a long time. And I find that to be so true. When you're in your 20s and 30s, like that's the time when you really need to be learn the business world, learn how things work, learn your way around. There's a lot to know. When you start a company and you try to grow it and you try to build it, like there's a lot to know there. And yes, the venture capital guys, you start a company, maybe you put a board together, you get some investment going. Maybe one of the venture capital guys sits on the board or whatever, and they can give you some direction and stuff like that. But it's a lot. There's a lot of on the job, training going on there. And that's also a big reason why, a lot of these companies don't pan out. And I think you also see this pattern of a lot of young entrepreneurs. They fail the first time out, or they might even fail the second time out. It might not be till the second or third go around that they finally figure it out. And a big part of that is just, knowing a lot of all the little things that go into running and operating a business. And like I said, and if you get people that are older, they already understand all those things. They already have all that base bio. I mean, they can literally hit the ground running. Maybe they just need a little bit of money. And then also, people who are in their 40s and 50s or even 60s that might look to start a business. I mean, they also have some resources of their own. They might have, been able to save a lot of money. They might have been able to, if they had a really good corporate job working for a bigger company, they might have been able to put, a few $1 million away. And now they're not necessarily, worried about where the next paycheck is coming from. So they have the financial resources. They can take a chance and dive into starting a business and seeing if they can give it 5 years to try to get it off the ground and make it run. So that's another aspect of this. Whereas 95% of 20-year-olds out there are broke. And that's not a criticism. That's just life. That's just how it is, right? So anyway, I thought that this was just a great topic today, and I find this to just be absolutely 100% true. I think that older entrepreneurs can make great entrepreneurs, and I do not think that people should be discounted just because they're in their 40s or 50s or even in their 60s. Remember, it was Colonel Sanders who started Kentucky Fried Chicken. He was 65 years old when he started Kentucky Fried Chicken. So, and again, and I know that's a rarity, but it just goes to the point of like, age, what do they say? Age ain't nothing but a number, right? So with that being said, I'll wrap up by basically saying, if you like this episode, please make sure to like, share, and subscribe, as it really helps the channel. Remember, we are on YouTube, Rumble, and all major podcast platforms. Please be sure to leave your comments down below, as I always love getting back to everybody. Remember to check out some of the other content on the channel. And finally, BND Strategy Room will be out tomorrow night on Saturday, every Saturday night on YouTube live at 8 o'clock. I hope you'll come and check it out. We talk about all the, weekly financial news and happenings, economic indicators, big stories. Get all kinds of financial analysis, all kinds of good fun stuff there. So like I said, if you've never checked out the live stream, make sure to check it out. But I hope everybody has a wonderful day, and I will see everyone again real soon. Thanks a lot.